thanks.
Give thanks. Throughout history, it has been the inaction of those who could have acted, the indifference of those who should have known better, and the silence of the voice of justice when it mattered most that has made it possible for evil to triumph. Kedemawi Emperor Haile Selassie I cited from an address in Addis Ababa 1963. May the words of Ainai mouth and the meditations of Ainai heart be acceptable among the congregation of Ainai Brethren. Selah. All right, so in today's world as Rastafari, what does politics and governance mean to us? It is important to set the parameters for this question in order for anything that I say to make proper sense. However, this question has been dealt with to various degrees, even in lectures on this very platform. So I will, instead of spending time on exploring that, give you my definition and the parameters within which I want to approach today's lecture. First of all, I, as a conscious Rastaman, whose primary goal is to see the total liberation of my people, cannot sit aloof and be unconcerned about how the continent is governed. It is time to move the fight from the peace-loving messages in reggae music, etc., to confronting those institutions which reggae music identifies as Babylon, Babylon. It is irresponsible, in my opinion, to take an apolitical stance as a freedom fighter while the individuals who constitute that same body that I just spoke about continue to perpetuate the things that we fight about, fight against, and ride on a cakewalk to positions of authority to enact laws and craft policies that continue to govern I&I. Why, for instance, do Rastafari have to let someone determine how I&I hold thy sacrament? Why am I ready not to accept that institution as a worthy institution that I have to participate in, but accept the laws and policies that come out of that institution? I just ask myself why. Why are we just obeyers of the law rather than active participants in the making of that law? And we'll explore more about that later. And I believe that my brethren and sisters can give me many more examples. So this is just, prodding our minds, prodding our conscience to certain things that we already know. With the advancement that Rastafari has made over the decades, after persecution for many decades, after some of us transforming from children to parents, we have and are still bringing up a generation who do not feel subservient to anyone because we have taught them so, not to be subservient to anyone. Unlike some of our parents' generation who taught us to be gentle, meek, and mild, who taught us to go to Sunday school clad in white with our hands clasped together, singing, "Gentle Jesus, meek and mild." Now we are teaching our children a different tune. I hear our children singing, "Get up, stand up for your rights." And so this generation definitely expects more from us than the status quo. The generation we are bringing up will not understand the motive behind sitting aloof for some institutions that we consider Babylon, that we chant down every day to make and set the agenda while we claim to be apolitical, but yet are active obeyers of the laws they churn out. So with that comes a new boldness to step out unapologetically and take up the responsibility like HIM did, like Marcus, the most honorable Mosiah Garvey did, like Ya Asantua did, like Queen Nzinga did. All the icons that represent I&I tribe did not sit back. They were active, either fighting or participating in the process, rather than just sitting aloof and having it fed on them. I could go on and on and on about why it is important for I&I as Rastafari not to just be visible, but also be active as a formidable political player. And we could have, we already have what it takes to do so. And I believe we will be looking at a bit more at that also. Let me also make a quick note of the fact that my lecture today is not a eureka piece at all. To me, it's a collection of ideas from reasonings and from such other research, and therefore should not be looked at as the complete answer to forming a formidable political force, but should be examined within the framework within which I'm going to present today's lecture. And we are all welcome to, of course, add to it and subtract from it if need be. Let me also make a quick note that it is going to reiterate some points that have already been activated by some, even among us. And with that, let me make special mention of the NDC Rastafari caucus, who actively cannot be overlooked when it comes to Rastafari and politics in Ghana. I am also fully aware that there are some among us who may not sign up to the principles of that party, and we have to be fully empathetic of their feelings also. Let me also mention that some of us, in the quest to follow any of these political parties, I'll invite you to research a little bit into these parties before you pick up a party card. It's very important, because some of these parties, if you look at their philosophies, if you look at their histories, they just don't align with I as Rastaman, you know. But of course, everybody's free to make their choice when it comes to that. And as I stated from the beginning, what we are talking about today is not constituting or forming a political party, but rather constituting a solid political force that is capable of cutting across political party lines. Okay, now indulge me one quick moment while I bring in another quote. Actually, hold on. Okay, also let mention has to be made of the fact that I as Rastaman do not necessarily believe or accept that the so-called system of demon crazy, we all know what we're talking about, democracy, we all know that it is not necessarily the best form of governance for I. We all know that. But as a pragmatic person seeking to solve real and not imaginary or utopian problems, I have to work within the parameters of existing institutions until I possibly have the power to change it. With that said, what did His Imperial Majesty say about democracy, demon crazy? His Majesty said, what do these words signify? What have they changed in the world? Have men become better, more loyal, kinder? Are the people happier? All goes on as before, as always. Illusions. Besides, one should consider the interest of a nation before subverting it with words. Please mark that. Besides, one should consider the interest of a nation before subverting it with words. Democracy is necessary in some areas, and we believe some African peoples might adopt it. I want you to mark this also. His Majesty said democracy is necessary in some areas, and we believe some African peoples might adopt it. But in our case, it is harmful, a mistake. I want you to mark that also. It is harmful, a mistake, right? So it could be harmful, it could be a mistake. However, the part where I want to stand on at this point is where His Majesty says some African peoples might adopt it. Further did indicate that this is something that we may have to adopt. And so if we must, or if we are going to adopt democracy at some point, as Father indicated, we should be prepared to work within that framework. Father said, be wise as serpent. You know? So we have to be able to function within that, because His Majesty, remember, functioned within that framework as well. His was an all-standing ancient throne, but he was working within a system which was set up within with the democracy thing in mind. So we should all be very cognizant of that. All right. So obviously, His Majesty alerted us that we will have to deal with a system such as this, even if we did not like it. HIM did not like it, yet he dealt with it. Right? He says it's harmful, it's a mistake, but he operated within that. Marcus Mosiah Garvey charged INI to organize and centralize. He was working within the systems that had been set up, even if to change it. And that has to be also marked. That to me is the quintessential definition of governance and political involvement, confronting the pillars of power and forcing them, whether through the laws that they've already made or whether forcing them to change the laws that they've made for INI comfort, because INI are not just obeyers of the law. We have to be active participants in making of those laws. In today's world, with the modern concepts of governance we are confronted with, left-wing, right-wing dissension, liberalism versus conservatism, and all the shades in between, before and beyond, the concept of constituting a political force is essential not only for the survival of functional societies, but also for INI as Rastafari to claim a birthright and position our next generation as equal contributors, politically and otherwise, to the liberation of Africa and her peoples, home and abroad. If we don't do that, we get swallowed up by some of these ideas into their bigger definitions. And not that I care about their definitions, but then you find out that you are actually carrying a tag or a classification. I'll give you an example. We have an example where you have races fighting for a cause, and they have to fight in the same group as people defending maybe their sexuality. And maybe that's not what INI is necessarily defending, but we are bunched together in a certain minority alliance. So it's very important that we form our own big enough block so that we don't have to depend on nobody's alliance. That's what I mean. A political force can be defined as a group of individuals or organizations with shared values and goals who come together to influence the political landscape through various means. Constituting a political force involves building alliances, mobilizing resources, and creating a collective voice to advocate for change where necessary and sustenance where desired. I need you to mark that as well. Sustenance where desired, because sometimes we don't necessarily have to call for change for certain things. We have to call for the sustenance of something that seems to be working for us. But of course, that's not to say we sit comfortably. We still want to be experimenting into new ways of doing that. From this point on in this lecture, we will explore a few components of constituting a political force, including the importance of leadership, organization, mobilization, and communication in relation to our peculiar circumstances as Rastafari. By examining these key elements, we can gain a better understanding or overstanding, as I might say, of how political forces are formed and how they can impact political decision-making processes. We will also, together, explore some of the practical examples of these elements as we will all discuss together. Now, let's look at leadership real quick. I'll explore these things really quickly so we can round up and have a discussion rather than just me talking all the time. All right. So one of the most critical components of constituting a political force is effective leadership. Leaders have a pivotal role in shaping the vision, aspirations, and strategies of a political force. They provide guidance and direction to members, inspire action, and foster unity within the group. Effective leaders possess key traits such as communication skills, charisma, and strategic policy formation. They must be able to engage with diverse stakeholders, build consensus, and navigate complex political landscapes, including engaging with the political leadership of the nation and even beyond, if the need or the occasion arises. Without strong leadership, a political force may struggle to mobilize support, achieve its objectives, or maintain cohesion. For us as Rastafari, we don't have to reinvent the wheel at all, because Kedemawi Emperor Haile Selassie has shown us the way. He has already given us a template. However, it is also important to have visible boots on the ground leadership that will not only navigate the complex course of modern day politics, but also represent the authority I wield as Rastafari. It is important for such ones, however, to remember not to be lords over the collective, but to see themselves as servants who have been chosen by the brethren and the sistren to serve by leading. Experience has shown that finding consensus in this area is not a small feat. However, in recent times, we have also seen the successful formation and operation of the Rastafari Council of Ghana, which has representation from all the mansions, as far as I know. And somebody can correct me on that later on if I'm wrong on that. But not just that, but also from members who may not identify with any of the mansions, as well as people who do not necessarily even self-identify as Rastafari necessarily. In addition to leadership, I'm looking at organization. In addition to leadership, the organization and structure of a political force is also very crucial for its success. A well-organized political force is able to coordinate activities, allocate resources, engage with stakeholders effectively, etc. Organizational structure determines how decision-making and processes are carried out, how responsibilities are assigned, and how information flows within the group. A clear delineation of roles and responsibilities can prevent conflict, foster accountability, and promote transparency. However, a conscious effort must be made not to perceive the responsibilities assigned to ones and ones as an exclusive privilege, rather than, once again, a call to serve by leading. Moreover, a pliable and adaptive organizational structure can enable a political force to respond to changing circumstances and seize opportunities for growth and impact. This is achieved by keeping constant touch with the collective, using the channels of communication available to source and refine opinion and eventually policy. It is vital that whatever policy we operate on is formed and informed by the general mood of the collective. Again, let me mention the RC, or the Rastafari Council of Ghana. Let me commend them for successfully navigating the complex minefield of slightly different dogmas and arriving at a collective body representing INI as Rastafari. Mobilization of resources, real quick. Another key element of constituting a political force is the mobilization of resources. Resources can include financial support, human capital, land and other property, expertise, and networks. Mobilization of resources is essential for sustaining the activities of a political force, expanding its reach, and achieving its goals. Political forces must develop strategies for fundraising, recruiting volunteers, and building partnerships with like-minded organizations. They must also engage in advocacy efforts to garner support from decision makers, mobilize public opinion, and influence policy outcomes. By effectively mobilizing resources, political forces can enhance their capacity to bring about meaningful change and advance their agenda. We as Rastafari have an advantage in some of these areas and not so much in others. For example, it is an open secret that INI may not have the financial wherewithal, but we may also be very much endowed with the other aspects like human capital, like expertise, like networking, like even land and other forms of capital in some cases, as my experience has shown me in very recent times. It is time to take the words of the Right Honorable Marcus Garvey and work with it, organize and centralize. With these skills and other assets that we possess, raising the financial backing can be achieved through sustained efforts in areas like farming, agro-processing, education, arts and crafts, IT, etc. Here also, let me make mention of the efforts by the Advocacy Committee of the Rastafari Council Ghana in the initial steps taken into establishing the farms. It is important to start talking to our brethren and sisters, especially those abroad who may have the wherewithal to invest in expanding these farms as well as establishing a viable agro-processing unit to go with it. Let me also mention that it is important to take advantage of existing government policies, which may provide access to resources that we as citizens are entitled to. We must start researching the policies of the incoming government, for instance, to see where we can benefit from it where the case applies. We can start looking at policies like Women's World Banking. I said Women's World Banking, sorry about that. National Women's Banking, I meant, which is a policy of the incoming government, which seeks to give loan, interest-free or loan interest rate loans to women to pursue businesses. Let's actively see if we can enroll as many of our empresses into such policies as possible. Also, there are ones called the Ejumara, which seeks to empower people who have like arts and crafts, handiworks, stuff like that. We know that a lot of our brethren and sisters are engaged in those areas, and we could, those of us who have the knowledge in, the booking and the writing and those type of things, help such and ones to benefit, to fill whatever paperwork there could be, to benefit from policies like that, to expand I&I reach economically at Rastafari. If, for instance, the Rastafari community has a huge organic farm which produces the raw material for a chain of food vending units, one in every regional capital, kitchen on wheels style, you can just imagine how much that alone can bring. Let's say we have 50 acres of land somewhere in the Brown Afro region, and we have youth who are actively engaged in farming, and we have the wherewithal of some of us who know about farming, who are providing the knowledge to an agro-processing unit, and it's preparing the food, and we have the kitchen on wheels style, well branded. Every region, there's one of them. So we're producing juice, we're providing organic ITAL food in every region, right? So it already shows a presence, So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about right here. This was just one example that I love. All right, now, and I'll be running up very soon, so please bear with me. Okay, so and let me bring in another quote right here. It says, knowing that material and spiritual progress are essential to man, we must ceaselessly work for the equal attainment of both. His Majesty Kedemawi Emperor Haile Selassie I, right? And that's self-explanatory. I'm not going to say too much on that. Ceaselessly working to attain both material and spiritual progress, however, means we must be aggressive in planting our feet as a force to reckon with for the sake of future generations. The Right Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey setting up the Black Star Line is another example of the need to be active commercially so as not to be dependent, especially on the same forces that we are fighting. With financial confidence, no one is going to be telling my children they don't qualify to go to a Chimota school or whatever school they decide to go to. Because we can set up a school that is better than a Chimota school if need be. We can do it. Despite that it's an old school, they can beat us in age, but standards, we say. Also, nobody's going to be telling my children they cannot show up for work in their regal, beautiful, nice smelling locks. Nobody will have the power anymore to impose religious practices that we don't necessarily sign on to on our children in the schools that they attend as a matter of policy. But we'll all start with striving to attain a reliable source of funding for our activities, not membership dues. Membership dues only runs at the administration. We need active sources of income. Communication, as a roundup. Lastly, communication and messaging are crucial elements in constituting a political force. Effective communication is essential for conveying the values, goals, and actions of a political force to its members, supporters, and the broader public. Political forces must develop compelling narratives, craft persuasive arguments, and engage in dialogue with various stakeholders to build awareness and support for their cause. Clear and consistent messaging is vital and can help mobilize resources, galvanize public opinion, and shape the political discourse. Through strategic communication models, political forces, INI as Rastafari, can amplify INI message, expand INI influence, and create a lasting impact on the political landscape. The leadership must be very active and alert on the goings on in the country. Our collective voice and opinion must be heard on the salient issues that crop up in the country. I want us to highlight this. Our collective voice as Rastafari must be heard on all the salient issues that crop up in the country. We must have well-worded statements, well-worded, well-crafted statements issued on every important national discourse currently, including things like Galamsey, state of the economy, where the nation is heading, all of that. We have to have a solid voice that is constantly joining the discourse. Because for all you know, and I have proof of this, some of those who make things happen will be reading you and crafting their policy based on you pricking their conscience, if not for anything else. So we should be very, very aware of that, I should say. Our sustained resistance as a body is vital in this info-pregnant age. Future generations will wonder what the heck we were doing and what we did about all the things that passed us by. GMO, for instance, is being sneaked into the country, and we will be apolitical and sit and chant and bonfire all we want, but they will implement policies that will give Monsanto and Syngenta and all these people the rights to come in and grow GMO. So what if we were in the mix? What if we were part of the process that gives Syngenta and Monsanto that right? And what if we had the right to stop it? Just chew on that for a second. I can attest that some of the good policies implemented by some well-meaning government officials, I spoke about this already, let me move on because of time. I just wanted to make a quick mention of somebody like Ras Mubarak, who was in government, right? And who was heavily influenced by reasons with INI, so that was just an example. Now let me go on to the next one real quick. In this slide, we must consider investing in and setting up well-resourced media platforms, right? And I'm talking about information right here still. Media platforms like disseminating information on the same level as the more established ones. If we have the power to do it, let's do it. I believe if we pool our resources together, home and abroad, it is not a wet dream at all. Until we are able to raise the resources to do this, however, we can count on friendly but not as big platforms like Yard and Foreign Radio, Santino's radio platform, like the Lion Voice, like Radio Culture, for instance, which we know are platforms that may not have the clout that the bigger platforms may have, but are still may still have the capacity to drive INI messages as a collective, So let's also seriously consider plugging into those channels as well. All righty. And then we also should make use of people who are friendly to INI message. People like Black Rasta, who's, very active on radio, will be actively linked as a vital communication unit. Now, let me mention that with sustained following on such platforms, they'll grow to match the bigger platform. And hopefully one day I will get the opportunity to come to speak again for the education that is on media and channels and all of that. Now, in conclusion, with all that said, it is important to know that we're going to operate in a media system. And Kidemawi Emperor Haile Selassie warned us about and called a mistake. Then we have to strategize accordingly. The system that we operate in now is based on numbers. So how do we obviously with a minority when it comes to that Ghana numbers? That with the many decades of being tagged as with the negative branding and all of that. Now, in spite of the negative branding, we also have the opportunity to reverse that. And even if we do not have the so-called numbers in terms of registered or self-identifying members, we can create a constituency in the larger public through our messaging. We do have some arsenal draw on. We do have the love of reggae music. We do have the love of ganja, which is also a problem for many people who may feel shy or afraid to identify. But we can speak to and have as a constituency who are willing to help, for instance, change the laws that govern that. Another example is the collaboration that INI already has, in effect, with already established institutions like the Food Sovereignty Ghana, which is fighting the GMO thing and all of that. All right. One moment, please. I'm going to have to cut this thing. In conclusion, constituting a political force is a multifaceted process that involves leadership, organization, mobilization, and communication. Effective leadership is crucial for guiding the vision and the actions of the political force. Organization is essential for raising the awareness and mobilizing and all of that, and also for promoting accountability. We also have spoken about resources and, of course, communication. INI can has the capacity and influence of political decision-making process through making itself into a viable force of such nature, indeed. And if we are not at the helm of these hierarchies yet making the decisions, at least we can be a very solid force influencing those who are there making the decisions for now until such time that INI will have the opportunity to drive the discourse. With such said, I give thanks and I am open for further reasoning from my brethren and sisters. Give thanks.
Yes, give thanks. My Lord, we appreciate the presentation. Very thought-provoking. I believe we've all heard a lot, learned a lot, most importantly. So at this stage, if there is any question, if there is any comment, I think we can bring it forward. My Lord, I like the fact that you mentioned that you are not advocating for organizing a political party, but a political force.
Yes.
Yes.
It's very important to make that.
Please, I'll be happy if you can just throw more light on this. The difference between a force and a party.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Raz. And it's very important that we do that. We differentiate. For instance, as I stated, our force should include people from all political persuasions. There's nothing wrong with having people who believe that the MPP is the way to go. Also, people who think the NDC is the way to go. Also, people who think the CPP is the way to go. Also, people who don't even necessarily sign on to any of these parties at all, right? But we are not looking at political parties, because once we start looking at political parties, then we are going to deviate from following His Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie to following the philosophies of these parties, right? So it's important that we keep INI Alliance together as Rasta. We're not going to be distracted from our primary goal as Rasta. But no matter where we find ourselves, right? And let me give you an example of that. There are people, there are families, for instance, in India, in other places, who have invested their monies into economies around the world. For instance, if you go to South Africa, there's a very famous family called the Patel family. They run South Africa practically. Why? Because they've invested their money into South Africa in such a way that whether the opposition or the other party comes in power, they have people that are aligned with them. Now, that is the thing to do. Imagine that we don't care where you belong on the political party line. We just care that you sign on to what I and I want to achieve as a bigger collective. And that must stay on point with the teachings of His Majesty. We have to be very careful about that, because the sign on to parties, the more we are pulled in by the ideologies of these parties. With that said, however, let's also be clear that some of these parties function on ideologies that are similar to what His Majesty has set for I and I. Right? That's why I said, if you want to pick up a party card, please research a little bit into the history and the philosophies of these parties before you do that. Give thanks.
Give thanks, my Lord, for that response. Yes, I have appreciated that position more. My Lord, and then Presses, at this stage, we invite ones and ones to come in with their questions, their comments. So, please, who is coming forward? We give thanks for the presence of Prof. Imhotep. We're happy to have him with us. We give thanks for Prof. Wiro, Ras Christian Noche, Black Gold. We give thanks for your presence. Ja Martin. Yes, Jamusa, Steve, Boy. We appreciate your presence. At this stage, we invite your comments, yes, questions. Yeah.
Give thanks. This is Raspuluga. Ja beloved, I understand why you chose the word force. Well, I can see a revolutionary connotation behind the word force as you chose it. But what I want to find out is that from your presentation, you said this force will include all political actors, which is a good thing because knowledge doesn't lie in one person's head. But my question really is, how are we going to blend the spiritual aspect of Rastafari as is being taught us by Emperor Selassie to this movement, to this force movement, political connotation that we are talking about? How are we going to blend the two?
Give thanks.
Is it, yeah, man. Yeah.
No, go on, please. I thought you were finished. Go on.
Is it not? No. Let me put it this way: is the political force, revolutionary thinking movement, not going to conflict with the spiritual aspect of Rastafari if we actually set to go that way? That's my question. I don't know whether you understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand the question perfectly. Thank you very much.
Beloved,
So,
can I add this to the question before you take the answer for both of it? I don't know if you mind.
Yes.
I would love to add mine to his.
Yes, go ahead.
It's actually
go ahead.
In way. Raskluga, I think I understand it from another side where he is like, if we empower ourselves economically, we we do what is expected of us in our communities, kind of things. It's like we become a power to reckon with, like kind of in neighborhoods where Rasta will be very key in most important things. If anything, they call on Rasta come in and get it sorted out. It's like it got to a point, if people want to contest for an assemblymanship, they came to Aya. Aya, we just want to go this way, oh, talk to your people for me. Then the opposite side will also be coming to Aya. So I think I understand him from that point, like, let's make ourselves very relevant to the extent that politically, although we are not sided, we are all a force on our own. They will come and seek our audience just for us to know, say, hey, this is what I want to do. What do they think? Because recently, I did my corner. Then somebody will go contest independence where you lose. We all we hear say you lose. But I call say, oh, my brother, I just call you to alert you, say the mission where I inform you, so they go check out. No, this be the result. Oh, I was kind of, hey, if you make yourself a force of recon rate, they will call on you. And another MP where you win,
Exactly.
it's still higher for another way. It's salute higher. Hey, Charlie, you guys be the thing. Yes, I. So make ourselves a way to reckon with. I think that is how I understand Jah beloved handle this. Am I
And
on
you're very
course?
right. You are very right. You're on point. You're very much on point about that. You're very much on point. And how we make ourselves relevant, is also not to be like we are, excuse me to say, renter dread.
Yes,
like say we are for rent, and
I-
anybody can
And
come
I
with any
think that
nonsense.
doesn't
And then we
conflict with
are
our spiritual
right.
anything, because it's kind of our way of life.
Exactly. And I'm segueing into that. Yes, and I'm segueing into that right now because, brethren, with the first question, right? His Majesty did say already, and luckily I did quote it in my lecture. His Majesty said, knowing that material and spiritual progress are essential to man, we must ceaselessly work for the equal attainment of both. So His Majesty is drawing our attention to the fact that spirituality, yes, but it's also important to have a comfortable life, right? Within which our spirituality will blossom and flourish.
Yes,
Because if your focus is on hand to mouth, if every day, all you do is trying to find food to eat, what time do you have to think about the mystics of this world? What time do you have to explore the inner depths of the mind that God has given you, within which temple He dwells? So it's important that we strive to be independent, not just spiritually, but also economically from whatever force. And brethren, you are right. We're saying that we have to make ourselves relevant. But making ourselves relevant, we have to make ourselves, the relevance goes with independence, right? We have to put the two together so that we will become more functional. Give thanks.
Give thanks.
Give thanks, that beloved, for the explanation. I'm grateful. Give thanks.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Ras. The next
Yes, sir.
question, please. Comments.
Blessings.
Yeah. Blessings, King. Come forward.
My name is Stephen Boy. I am the General Secretary for NC Rasta Caucus. And I have sort of a question or a contribution. When Ras was speaking, he mentioned of the fact that Rasta shouldn't lose focus by political affiliation. And I want to
Give
ask
thanks.
that.
Can you reposition yourself?
Hello?
Can you please? It's better now. Go ahead.
Okay. I was asking that as conscious people like us who have set out to create a caucus to affiliate with the NDC, is it the right step in the right direction in achieving the global aim of economic and political freedom for us in the world at large? Ras, do you believe that we are deviating, or we are still on track, basically?
Great question. Great question. Great question. Thank you very much. Everything is good for what it is good for. That's what I say. Everything is good for what it is good for. When the white man came to Africa, mosquitoes used to give us malaria, right? But the same mosquitoes prevented the white man from going into certain parts of Africa and taking over the continent the way they did to Australia. I'm just saying, everything is good for what it's good for. You just have to have a motive. What's your motive for joining the NDC? That's what I would ask. And I'm very happy you brought this up. Because, for instance, I think that if we have an NDC Rasta caucus, one of the first things we should demand from any government is to look at that question of our sacrament, for instance, right? So I'm saying this to say that if you're joining the NDC, it's not you joining the NDC or not joining the NDC, that's the issue. What if you were a politician before you cited JA? What if you were working in the ministry, as I believe one of our brethren is doing, right, at least, or working in a court or something like that? We have Rastafari working in all different places. So if somebody's a politician and he cites JA, there's nothing wrong with that. Neither is it wrong if somebody decides that he went to school to study political science and he would like to apply that. Or even if he didn't study political science, he has a brain that functions like a leader and he would like to employ that. Maybe he wants to be an assemblyman in his area and he sees NDC as a vehicle to achieve that. Nothing wrong with that. However, what is the motive? What is the grand motive for you joining that party? Are you trying to go there like the others to enrich yourself and get a V8? Or are you going there to impact people's lives? And whilst you are there, as a Rasta man who has agreed to go there, why did you go there? What do you want from them? They want something from you. They want the numbers, they want the influence, they want the association. What do you want? It's a question we always answer before we join these parties. And that is something that I hope I can engage the NDC Rasta caucus on a little more as we go along. You know, I think that once you've made yourself relevant enough, you should start making demands. If you are relevant enough within the NDC, you should start getting them to look at the so-called ganja bill, which is kind of just under the heat and playing foolery without, you know, for instance. I hope that answers the question.
Yes. To some extent. To
Okay,
answer some of the
if I can see the
questions.
question that wasn't answered, I'll be happy to go there with you.
Yes. I am the general secretary, so I think if there's some time, we can still talk about the caucus to some extent. So your question on what our motive is, basically our motive is to see the comfort and the national cake being shared
Equitably.
overtly, equally amongst everybody. Please, am I audible enough?
You are very audible.
Yes. And whatever that is due, we believe that have the opportunity now to make it trickle down to the layman on the streets. And it's basically extending that love, that transparency in governance, that involvement that the people are wanting to feel. And we believe that we are bringing the governance to the people and looking at the policies that the party publicized. We it made sense to us, and we wanted to affiliate with that, and the picture was to see through the faces of government, and this political party was the vehicle we wanted to use to drive that.
I hear you, Virgin, and I can confidently, yes, I hear you clear, and I think that I also dealt with an aspect of that in the lecture, being that if we see these parties as the vehicle, right, for achieving those things that we want to achieve as a political force, for instance, definitely I endorse using these vehicles. I think I made that clear in the lecture. However, it is not supposed to be our, as we say in Ghana, a crowd last stop, right? That should not be our goal, that we are going to try and be part of a political party. That should be part of the goal. So, for instance, if we have some of you in the NDC Rasta caucus, within the next 5 years, 12 years, groom yourself to influential positions. If you can get a couple assemblymen from you, if you can get even a member of parliament, why not? Listen, if we come together as a force and we are backing this artist, I say this artist, we're backing this person, right, to go into governance. Just look at this strategy, for instance. Bear with me. Which town in Ghana doesn't have a ghetto? Which town in Ghana with a population of more than 10,000 doesn't have a ghetto? Every single town has 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. So what if we have a candidate whose primary message is that I'm going to stop the youth from going to jail for marijuana, and all we are doing is going from ghetto to ghetto to ghetto to ghetto, preaching that message, right? And getting the youth to understand that they are fighting for their own rights. What is an example? What if we chose a particular constituency and decided to focus all our energies there and make sure that we raise one member of parliament, one person in parliament who is sympathetic to our cause as a start? So there's nothing wrong at all with joining these parties. I hope I made that clear. They are a great vehicle, and that's why I also said that His Majesty may not even like the politics of the day or the systems, but that's what's available. So we have to learn to navigate that. So if the IDM is comfortable working in that area with the goal that you just expressed, there's nothing wrong with that. But the other thing, though, is that I have not seen or heard you making demands. Maybe it's your strategy. I cannot fault you on that. Maybe the strategy is to walk, trot, run, right? Make yourself a little more relevant before you start bringing up your issues. Maybe that's a strategy. Otherwise, I feel like once you have established the fact that you're a relevant force to deal with, then you have to also articulate the issues that you want seen, right? Rather than just be there and follow policies that other people will be like, okay, so let's go and do this, and then you join it. But however, let me also know that some of the broader issues, let me round up real quick, please. Some of the broader issues, some of the broader policies like
leadership and then table our proposal.
Okay, I was just rounding up by saying that some of the other policies will also benefit INI same way as we did look at, right? Like the women banking, for instance. Maybe you as NDC see that, oh, this is something that when we back a government like that, we can benefit from. So, so yeah, there's nothing wrong with riding on that vehicle if the vision is clear.
Yes, Rasta. Yes, Rasta.
Yes, Rasta.
Yes, Rasta. Idea.
Mapse Midea.
Yes, sir.
Love.
Yes, I must say that. Truly. Greetings to everybody. Rastafari
Yes,
live at every time. It's good to have these reasons. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I heard David, yourself, and you were chanting, I think your radio culture, I feel it so much. I was so refreshed. So these things are good. If you can meet personally, just say, distance is not a barrier to love. Distance is not a barrier to love. Yes. Once we start talking about this, we must be thinking about word sound power.
Mm-hmm.
And so man feel that we must change things like democracy. Once we want to go into it, we must move the demon from it. No matter what it is. And I think that if you look at it, it just set up a constitutional monarchy, a constitutional democracy, or what you call a constitutional monarchy in Ethiopia.
Mm-hmm.
That was His Majesty's rule, the 1930 Constitution, if I'm right, if I got the date right, which was I think revised in later, I think in the 15th, if I'm correct. I can't get the dates properly, the numbers properly, but I think that it was in the Constitution. It was a constitutional monarchy. That is a democracy like Britain. America has got its own democracy. That is they have got their style. They don't vote the president directly. They have got their college. What is it? College of what? College of electorate, whatever, the electoral college and things like that. Yeah, when you go to Japan, Japan has also got democracy, and Japan, you can't go and insult people like we have in our system. They have got a democracy, and there is more discipline inside it. When you go to China, they also say they have got democracy and they are dealing with it. When you go to Northern Europe, I mean the Scandinavian countries, they have also got democracy. It's quite different from what we know, and they are benefited from it. So I don't think that we should see democracy as something evil. Though there are some reasons why Rastaman don't want to go into politics and all that. I don't think we must see it as evil because there are different types. And that's one up. Good. Now, once we are on this course too, let us look at somebody like Obama. Some people cannot make history, but they must help other people to make history. If somebody, I think John Kerry did not draw Obama into politics, he may not have been in politics. He had been smoking his ganja and smoking coke and all that somewhere. So sometimes, do we have the humility? Do we have that love to be able to sit a brother who, when we see has got potential, to reason with him, brother to brother, let's give him some help, sit him down and tell him, my brother, when you watch the way you talk, when you watch the way you do things, you can do this for us, do it for us. Somebody bought Nkrumah and financed Nkrumah. If we don't have the money, don't we have the love to talk to somebody when we see the person has got potential? That is what love is about. So once we are reasoning this, let's begin to look out. Let's begin to search what's got the potential. Who can we support so we can do what we have to do? Now, politics is a tool. The Bible is a tool. It can be used to exploit people like the pastors are doing. It can be used to build up people like Marcus Garvey did, like Bob Marley did, like all our brothers have been doing. Many of them, they have got the Bible backing. So it's a tool. Politics is a tool. It has got advantages, it has got disadvantages. Now, what are some of the advantages we can get when we have politics? We can talk about power. We'll get power. And once you have got power, like we say, we can create employment for the people in the ghetto. Instead of using money, instead of using power to do wrong things, we use the power to promote good things, to promote righteousness. We'll have influence. You have access to all people, all manner of people, because you have got power and you have got money. You get money too. What are some of the disadvantages? One, we might lose our credibility. Now, if you look at the elections over the years, about 3 years, over 3 years or 12 years, better, 3 times. The politicians are involved in the pastors more. Why? Because the politicians have lost credibility. So they want somebody to be able to get a credibility from. That is why they are going to the pastors. So when we go into it, we could lose our credibility. Because sometimes it's not, you might have to say yes when you have to say no, and say no when you have to say yes if you're not careful. Another thing is, if you remember, then there'll be also attacks. One of the reasons why Rollins stayed his coup was that I think that, they wanted him to retire from the army. So they took a picture of him and Liman shaking hands or something like that, and they put it on the front page of one of the newspapers, saying that Rollins has resigned from the army. Meanwhile, they had not told him anything. He had received no letter. It was a political gimmick. Those are some of the things that can come our way if we are going to it. How are we going to handle it? Do we have the emotional intelligence to be able to handle things like that? People want to make you angry just because they want to hear you talk. I prepared for such things. And then the final thing is we might lose our neutrality. Now, losing our neutrality, if RCG is behind always making sure that no matter the government, they are always saying the right thing, they're always saying what they have to say, then Rasta will not lose the neutrality. Otherwise, we might also lose neutrality. Thank you very much, and max to everyone. Maximum respect. Man is enjoying this so much. Yes, I. Greetings. Yes.
Respect, not say respect, not
Yes,
respect.
give thanks.
I remember all the points. First one, yes, I do agree with you. Word sound is power, you know. So, and I agree. You just drew my attention to something. If we are going to go in that arena, maybe we may have to consider stopping, you know, the term democracy. Also, if you take away things of the you know of grammar of the definition, what is democracy? Democracy, in the idea, we practice that already where we're from, right? It's just been given this name. And when we say democracy, we say in terms of how it's practiced over there. But otherwise, if among the Akan, for instance, if the people don't like the chief, there are communities where they can make songs for the chief and go behind his window at night and go and sing the song for the chief, make say how the people feel. That's democracy. If they see the chief behaving some nonsense way they don't like, they craft songs, they go and sing it to the chief. It's more effective than parliament, if you ask me, right? And then there are also places, there are places where if somebody goes and takes the chief's, you're kind of saying, sandal off their feet and place them on the ground, they have dethroned the chief. We have systems already. So I would say that it's not. Yeah, I do agree with you though. If we're going to go in that arena, word sound is power. Maybe we should start, you know, once we are in there, you know, it's like being in Babylon and say, fireborn Babylon, bro, in there too, you know, until we get out, make Sodom stay small, make we get out first before January turned and solve up on it. All right, just by the by. The other side, the other question was, what was the other question again? About the contribution about whether we have the emotion for fortitude to stand the politics.
Emotional intelligence.
Better just sit down and let people say for us.
Emotional intelligence, that's what I said.
Sure. And people who are just going to be like, oh, okay, no, we have a formidable force to be meek. But it's not like we are just, no, I have to make use of whatever strategies there are, but for positive effect. The difference here is that we are working on the side of the forces of good, whereas these people may employ those same strategies to work on the forces of evil, right? But there are communication structures that I can also employ to back our drive as a political force. And remember, you also mentioned about neutrality. If it's a question of neutrality, in places like Ghana and maybe a few other places, you will see that when it's NDP or NDC, there are other places where in the gray area, right? Let's say we have one member in parliament who is neither NPP or NDC, who went there on the ticket of, you know, putting resources to put them there. He owes no allegiance to NDC, now NPP. Now, even if you go there as a member of parliament for NPP or NDC, and you know that this thing is wrong or it's right, it's an opportunity for you to stand right. You may suffer from your party, and that's some of the things I'm sure you are talking about. But that's the point where you have to make the choice. You know, it's a battle, Rasta. It's not like we can sit down and be afraid to go into the battle even before we have gone into the battle. And let nobody deceive you, say they can come at I with some nonsense and we'll sit down and be takers. I also have the wherewithal to stand up to these people. If not, then we better just that was it. Or I think there was another issue. I think those other ones were contributions, right? So yeah, we give thanks for those contributions as well.
Give thanks, my brother. Give thanks. Maximum respect, my brother.
Every time. Prof. Wiro.
Please, any more reasoning? Yes, Prof.
Chrissy, well go on, sir.
Give thanks.
Yeah, man. Give thanks for the reasoning. Man, totally appreciate it. And man, totally appreciate the contributions where they come through. Yeah, I think that I like the word force, right? And I think that the word force, I think, as you mentioned, is different from a political party per se. I think that, as you also mentioned, a political party can be a tool, but most of the things that we may suffer, as you all have elaborated earlier on, in terms of neutrality, etc., if we are to operate under the framework of political parties, we can operate as a force without necessarily being subject to some of those disadvantages that come with joining political parties. And what do I mean by this? I think that, for instance, we can take an issue as Rastafari and say that every community in Ghana deserves potable drinking water. That is our issue. And whatever government that is in power, we can hammer that issue home until they do something about that. I don't think that, in this there is room for us to accept like certain areas where you go and people are to this day drinking muddy water and stuff like that. So that is what my understanding of acting as a political force, having agendas on issues and that you hammer. So that be where I see, what the word force they come in, and I think that's where we really be efficient. Particularly, look, to form a political party in Ghana right now, I believe you need about hundreds of thousands of Ghana cities to even register, right? We don't have that.
Right.
But we do have the media at our fingertips. We do have microphones. We have newspapers that we can access. So if we have an issue demanding
media,
Ghana citizen is a right, we demand it as a human right. We can make those demands consistently until those things are met. If we feel like sanitation is a problem in Ghana, we can take that issue up and then hammer that issue until something is done about it. So in that sense, totally, I see how Rastafari can be that force, that political force that can bring about much needed change in certain.
Yes, I.
And I also the thing say, like you said, the political parties can also be a vehicle, but should the entire Rastafari go into that political party arena? Maybe not, right? Because like I think you all said perfectly well, there are certain credibility issues, etc., that can arise out of that. Now, if certain members of Rastafari want to go that way, that's on their own, that's fine. But I'm looking at Rastafari as a whole. What can we do? What can we demand? What kind of change can we bring in our society right now? And I think that certainly we have the voice. And whether we know it or not, we also have backing. There are many people who, when we come and demand, say like, look, whether it's Mahama or Kufuor, whoever is in power, we want every community in Ghana to have drinking water. A lot of people will support that initiative, right?
Yes.
Yes, from your definition, from your definition, we will. I'm saying you can't definition. They say definition. Funny, it is you can't because we did this long ago. Shouldn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, very you can't
Yes. But
yes.
And you're too late. You bet you.
Oh, definitely. Better late than never.
True.
Yeah, better late than never. Yes. Maximum respect, my brother. Maximum respect.
Yes, Natty. Give enough thanks. Emperor.
Yes, I concur.
Profimotep, I would love to hear your voice on this. Profimotep, you can hear me?
Okay, so give thanks. While for Formidable is preparing, let me just come in.
All right. Anybody at all? 7.
All right.
Fire
So
side.
this Rasputin, I want to say one or two things.
Yeah, man.
Right. The contributor before the one that just spoke talk about credibility. We must have credibility in order for us to tap from the goodies of the political parties. That's the understanding of God from his contributions. Now, for me, I hold the view that it is now or never. Thank God or thank Jah or thank whoever it is. The NDC, as we speak now, have a majority in parliament that has never, I don't think this has ever happened in the Ghanaian history. So I want to appeal to NDC Rasta caucus. This is our time. This is the time that when we want to talk about ganja, legalization of ganja, whatever discussion we want to have about ganja, this is the time that we can push NDC caucus. This is the time that you can push for Rasta because there's no other time like this. If with this majority in parliament, if NDC caucus is not able to do anything for Rasta, then when again? So please, all those of us, or some of those of us who belong to the NDC caucus, please, I am appealing to all of you to reason with all of us so that contributions, ideas, ways that we can we can position ourselves to have that in order for the NDC party as a whole to listen to us. The fight or the push is not for the caucus alone. It's for the collective benefit of all Rastafarians. So I want to see an aggressive, well-prepared, persuasive document to this new NDC government to make sure that at least by the time the 4 years will be over, Parliament of Ghana will do something that we, Rasta, will have direct benefits from. So this is my appeal to the NDC caucus. If we are not able to get it now, I don't know when. Give thanks. Give thanks. Give thanks.
Give thanks. I just want to make a quick note that I wish that they were in charge of making the policy because I know they would have made it quickly, right? It's a balancing act. And this is why leadership is important. Because right now, leadership has to read the mood of the party. Leadership has to assess the level of our significance, even the EC caucus itself, right? The Rasta caucus. You should be able to assess your level of significance because you may show up at the party and then realize that the party doesn't even see you as a force. It's possible. It's also possible that the party may look at you and realize that, wow, this is a cash cow for us if we can treat it properly. In that sense, whatever demand you make, they will weigh it against that backdrop. But this is why it's important for leadership, so that we can think and present a collective but a unified front. It's important. But give thanks for all those contributions.
Yeah, Kwesi. Chairman. Chairman.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, you know, if there is an NDC caucus, as we have been hearing, then probably must be giving us an account of what they have been doing. Because if they are doing some positive works within Rasta, within NDC, naturally Rasta will gain respect within the party in one way or another. It is mutual. You know what I'm saying? So perhaps I know we must be channeling our resources towards them because there's a force already, or they must be telling us what they are doing on our behalf, or what they are doing as a force in the NDC. Are they like a team? Yes.
The challenge.
Yes,
I hear you, Bridget. Quick. Sorry. The challenge to that, though, is something that I also addressed in the lecture, being that not everybody may sign on to the philosophy or the ideology of the NDC, and we have to make room for that. Okay. The other time on a previous lecture, this issue came up, and somebody vehemently opposed the fact that Rasta had to have an association with a particular political party, right? There were things equally be say, for instance, NDC and what do you call it? Rasta NPP caucus, for instance. If there are Rastas in NPP who want to form a caucus, who can stop them? Nobody can stop them, right? But then again, that's why I invite you to look at the philosophy of these parties first and foremost before you didn't think of that in the first place. However, I don't think that channeling all our resources into a body like the NDC Rasta Caucus will be the way to go, in my opinion, because not everybody is on to their philosophy. And we should make it flexible enough for people, even who don't do any political party's ideology, to be able to function within this collective body that we are calling a political force. I personally, I may have my sympathies with some political party because they may align more with what I believe in, align more with the philosophies of His Majesty, align more with the philosophies of Kwame Nkrumah, etc., right? But I do not sign on to any political party. However, that does not take away my right or the opportunity for me to be part of a bigger collective, which we are talking about here as the political force and not a party. So it's important not to limit our energy party.
Yes, thank you very much.
Cut across many.
Yes, I was trying to link what you were saying. Yes, I was trying to link what you were saying and then what you were saying in terms of, because they say water has no enemy. So if it is what I want to talk about and there's a caucus like that and they are in power, why can't we channel it through them? Because water has got no enemy. That's where I was coming from. Not everybody coming to support NDC. But if we have got an issue, we want to back, like the example we
I hear you.
Why? Yeah, that's what I was coming from. Thank you.
But let me I hear you. Let me draw your attention to something real quick. I made the example the other day on this lecture series that there are people who have negative. It's not nostalgia anymore if it's negative, is it? But there are people who have memories of what they see as the brutality that was meted out to their mothers by Jerry Rawlings, for instance, right? How many people don't you hear in Kumasi say, Rawlings now, Obeboye Mami and Kalabule and all these things? There are people who they were even too young to understand, but they've been tuned. They've been hardwired to think that Jerry Rawlings was an anathema to their very ancestry. So now you expect somebody like that to go and throw their force behind NDC. It's hard. It's a very hard sell, So why take on somebody's peculiar issue? Let them deal with that. But let everybody, after they've dealt with all the little isms and schisms, come together in the collective to form the force so that if in 4 years' time, 8 years' time, 16, whatever, NDC is no more in power, we're still relevant because we are still plugged into the main pillars that make a policy. There's something called lobbying. That's another topic on its own because lobbying can be seen as bribery to a certain degree. Let's not get too deep into that. But for instance, if we position ourselves properly so that we plug into whichever side of the political divide is responsible for making policy. Then we don't have to be aligned even, right? Like I said, I agree with you. If we already have a foot in the door, it will make good sense to no. I think we should rather use it as a vehicle rather than make it the goal, right? So I'm going to Bolliger. The trotro is parked over there. It's going to Bolliger. I'll jump on the trotro. Once I get to Bolliger, I have no need for it again. But that doesn't mean I'm going to burn it down anyway, because I may need it to come back to Accra or, that's how we should treat political parties. We shouldn't treat them as that's where our allegiance is. Once they get a victory, that's it for us. No, the political party may win a major victory, but the bigger battle, like getting water for every community, may still be a battle that has to be won. And then because we are relevant, we'll put the pressure on them to make that happen. Then we will be celebrating our victory. That's what I think.
Yes, we give thanks for your responses. I can see that the Bosco, yes, is here, and I want to find out if he has something to say on the topic or the reason so far. So, my Lord, Daddy B, please, we want to hear your voice.
Greetings and give thanks for the reason. For me, I would say it's positive that I and I have been, bless the Lord, Rastafari, that I and I is having conversations around these issues. I believe the more we reason about these things, we'll find the best way to, as it were, solidify the force that Rastafari is for good. So give thanks for the reasoning. And sorry I joined pretty late, but still, I'm getting the vibe. Give thanks.
Give thanks, Daddy B.
Enough thanks, Daddy B. And since you mentioned that you joined late, I just want to reiterate a part of the lecture that falls in your lap, so to speak. I made a point that I think that as part of making ourselves a solid political force, we must be very visible, i.e., also vocal on national issues, right? So I feel like every issue that comes up, any of these institutions are making a commentary on, we should also be seen putting out a statement. Anything happens that any of these institutions at all will want to speak on, it is something that we also want to speak on. And you being the president of the country, that falls right in your lane. So I want you to please consider that going forward. And let's use whatever channels we have to make sure that we are very vocal in what we see as national issues or governance issues. Thank you.
Give thanks, Rastafari.
Yes, Profile Motel, 7 Fireside. Can we hear from you on the conversation so far?
Yeah, okay. Give thanks, brethren. Monday, thank beloved for the thing, and Martin, and the brother where he be general secretary for the caucus too, and everybody will speak. Matter of fact, I would love to hear what Son of Man have to say, because I know he's involved on that level too with the general secretary. But I just to hear basically say the conversation and map out roles for us. That's how I see them. We're actually hearing things that we could do, and roles are being carved out for us to do things with certain ideas. I think if we develop those ideas and just engage seriously, and then we become a force rather than say we're trying to maybe have a lot of information and process the information and love to meet and reason about this and it's us and this. Let's just see our roles and act on them together, because you say everybody have something to do, we go add to it, you know. So that'd be how to see it, you know. But yeah, if Son of Man have something to say, man, gonna love to hear it. And of course, Prophet Imhotep too.
Love, thanks.
Yeah, Son of Man. It is.
What's going on. And then it starts scaling up there. They're showing the hitting balls, volley balls, hitting demonstrate. Oh, yeah. What's it like when you see these kids start to line up to the right? Because they really get some action when you do this. I mean, if you talk to parents, you'll find out that they're not used to
Please, I think somebody is speaking, but we can't hear him properly, so the person can position himself well. Give thanks. Yes, Ajete Ashia. Raz, please, do you have anything to add? A question, comment?
Yes, Rastafari, last year, my brethren. Yeah, on the matter, I didn't join listen to the lecture, but then I get a flow so far about political parties and our role in shaping a nation. We don't have a choice, Rastafari. We have to take over power. We don't have no other choice as Rasta people. We have to take over power. One time, we just have to take over power. That's what we got to do.
A million miles starts with a step.
You say?
I said a journey of a million starts with a step.
Yeah, yeah.
And yes, that goal
we must not limit ourselves. We must not limit ourselves, and we must dream big, because if we don't dream big enough, we can't reach anywhere. If we dream big enough, at least we can catch halfway of the dream. And so, yeah, but it needs planning. You know, in this planning, we must be patient about it as well, and not rush into things and not do the things right. I think we must formulate policy and give it time and space, you know, and no say we can start planting the seed right now, and we will look out, say, we build that foundation for our children to come and take over in future, water the plants, and then maybe the next generation, third, fourth generation can reap the fruit. And it's the same ideology that our ancestors pass on to us that we have to let out this time in Sankofa fashion. And we can do this thing if we put our minds to it. We can take over power in time, because the way these people run it and the way they've been running for so long, if they keep on running that way, we can't go anywhere. And we can't put our trust in the NDC and the political parties that they have right now, right? We can't put our trust in them with the fashion way their brain is in. We hear somebody like Mama speak very intelligently the other day to the UN, you know. I was very impressed. And I think I posted in the Rastafari WhatsApp. So speech like that, we hear more of them and we can practice on them. Yeah, we're going somewhere. But I think majority of Africans need a kind of education for us to have self-knowledge, of self-belief and self, you know, assertion that we can assert ourselves and get on, you know, do these things that we need to do, take over power and do what we have to do for our nation, because otherwise these people are taking us nowhere. We got to get educated, man, because the majority of the people right now, we go out there, majority of the people don't even know that we are not discovered. People there think we are discovered. Against, with all these politicians, call 10 politicians, 10 of them will tell you that we were discovered. That's the education they have. So with people like that, we get nowhere.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So those are the things. Those
I
are the
agree with you,
fundamental
except
things
that
we must hammer at, and it's education and things like that. And form some awareness in the place. And then I think with that we can take over power one day. 30 years from now, 40 years from now. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Give thanks.
Yes, sir. But however, it's not war consisting of many battles, right? It's not one battle. It's okay, we're going to do this, and once we do that, it means we have achieved the thing. There's many things, many steps, many levels, many layers of things that have to happen before we can say that, yes, we are actually in control of, as you put it, take over power. If we could do that, it's a simple thing. Like, for instance, back in the day where you could go to DC and announce that you're taking over power, and that singular act constituted you taking over power, then we can all, work towards one thing like that. But it's more complex. It's more intricate. We have to consider many little battles that we have to win to constitute winning bigger war, right? Because if you're not careful, you may win one battle, but then you are predisposed to win the bigger war, So and to quote a Chinese, and I wish I had a better quote from, say, Ethiopia or something like that, from the generals that defeated the people at Adwa. But this one comes more handy to me. Sun Tzu, who's a Chinese philosopher, who says you really have to be smart when you're approaching war, right? Sun Tzu will tell you that if you're going to war with a big army, let them think. If you have a big army, let your opponent think you are small. If you have a small army, let your opponent think you are big, right? If I have a big army, I'll see my opponent to think, oh, this is a kick. Oh, these people, there's just 5,000 of them. There's 20,000 of us who will kick their backside. Meanwhile, I have 50,000, right? And I'm coming against you unprepared, so I'll run roughshod over you. Also, if I have a small army, I'll put the fear of God into it. I'm such a big army, so you're already like frightened before I come at you. So if you see 20 people, you think that's 20,000 psychologically, right? So we have to be smart about how we position ourselves. We can't just say, okay, we're going to go do this, boom. The enemy has arsenals to shut you down in no time. We have examples of that. We're not the first to try to constitute a political force. Marcus Garvey, all these other, Malcolm X, all of them, that's what they were about, really and truly, But right now we're looking at it with the spectacles of Rastafari, and we feel like we still have to be as strategic as possible. Give thanks.
Give thanks, my lords. Please, do we have any more? We can take one last more comment, and then our presenter will give us a summary or his closing remarks. So please, any final comments? Prof. Emote, please, is it possible for us to hear from you? Anything you have to say in relation to the topic for discussion? I think Prof is not able to speak. So please, any comments, any final comments so that we take our summary?
Kofi.
Yes, Ras.
Kofi. Yeah, the question
Yes,
I asked,
Ras.
I think the other side of it, the Rasta caucus in NDC, what is their work? What are they doing? Can they come out to tell us some of the things they are doing on behalf of Rastafari, or they are doing in the party, so we can at least we need some information. What are they doing for Rasta or for NDC? Could they come out? I heard the general secretary was around or something like that. Could they come out and tell us something? Somebody ask us, we have heard of Rasta caucus in NDC. What are they doing? We can get something to tell them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, my lord. Yes, please. I think in one of our presentations, we can invite their leadership to make a presentation so that we appreciate or we ask some of these questions. Or in any of the conversations, we can ask them to speak more about the caucus. I think Son of Man is not here, and I don't think their secretary is still with us here. So And also, time is fast spent. Time is almost out for. So we'll take a final comment from Chief Ayakongo, and then we can take the presenter's closing remarks. So, Chief Ayakongo, please come forward.
Yes, greetings. I'm hoping that ones are hearing and give thanks for the initiative of educating and bringing awareness to I as Rastafari. Yeah, these are workshops that are very necessary. We recognize the lack of political, even though we played such a political role, the refusal to participate consciously that we were playing a political role as Rasta has hindered a lot of the movement forward. And even though we might hinder the movement, we also recognize that the time is divine in when things manifest and how things happen. So we play both of those back in development and our self-governance, but at the same time there could have been that approach could have came where the enemy was at its strongest, and that initiative could have been totally smashed, where we would be actually behind now even further. So what I'm looking at is all the works that ones had put in, and all of the ideas and the struggles that have gone before us. That's our teaching, our playbook to study, and we have done so. That is why we're now speaking in this political tone, recognizing that the policies of every government affects Rastafari in every area that they are in their country, unless they come off the grid and go up in the bush and don't participate. But as long as they're out there in the participation of the state and what's going on, then we must be influential in the policies that are being made in the countries that we're in. Now, my approach or suggestion would and is still that we need to galvanize the Rastafari community into a oneness awareness of their political status as sovereign indigenous people. I think that until we get a common interest to focus upon, we're going to have the splintering of Rasta supporting this political party. Some green, some are orange, so they're in JLP and PNP, and then it's two Rastas that are enemies of each other. This is ridiculous. So we need to become one political body, you see, and that is about the only thing we could actually base that around is in our indigenous sovereign cultural, yeah. And so with that, I think it could serve to leave everyone in their own autonomy, their own idea, because there's many different ideas in Rasta, but I think that everyone in Rasta aims or would want to see that unity where we're one nation and have self-governance and self-determination. So at this point, I realize I got on here late and ones are wrapping up, so I'm not going to take up too much more of the item time. But I do think that it's possible, as said it before, that we could, and we're having another workshop, I think tomorrow, Monday. So I think that the key is to contact the Rastafari community within the country, and see who is the mover and shaker, and who is the ones who are influencing the community of Rasta in the country. Those ones need to come onto a committee or into a board that we're sitting on to reason about how do we become that one unified force of Rasta across the globe. Because it must be a global Rastafari political stance, or it'll always be us giving our support to these we ain't gonna call them neo-colonial, but influenced by that democracy and these things that when you do the research on it, democracy is the opposite of theocracy, basically demon government versus godly government, but we don't want to go, off into so much of that. So let's go ahead and just say that I think the first step we should be making, and I've been attempting to do so, is to make contact with the people who are political Rastafari leadership, who are politically motivated, and that
Rastafari.
see the need for us to become one global nation dealing with
Yes.
our own political business, self-governance. Now,
Ras,
once
we
we
give.
tap
I think
into majority of those
Ras. I think.
connections, and
I
we have
think we are at the
Zooms
tail end of.
and so
Hello,
forth, we
Ras.
set a time of how long we're going to be doing these Zooms. We set a
Yes,
time
Ras.
limit
So
to how
I
many.
think we are at the tail end of the reasoning. So if you can just wrap up so that the presenter will respond to it, and then if you can just summarize your statement so that the presenter will respond to that, and then he'll give us his closing remarks, because time is already advanced. We're already at the closing end of the program or the reasoning. So yeah, give thanks. So Ras, if you can conclude, or I think.
So Chief Congo is still going, or did you want me to just?
Yeah, I think Ras, I think his point is made. So I'm sorry, I don't know. I was thinking he wanted to conclude on that, but he's not coming up. So I think his point is well made. So please, you can go ahead and respond to that, and then give us your closing remarks. Thank you.
All right. So give thanks, Chief Ayakongo. Give thanks. I love the I approach, and that is something that I think I did not have the opportunity to explore too much, as in link the local struggle of the Rastafari in Ghana to the bigger global struggle of Rastafari everywhere. That is a much more nuanced discussion that we will have to have at some point, being as Rastafari communities around the world are faced with different political situations, So we would have to open the doors, open the floodgates to have a more nuanced that, and see how we can still navigate around this complex minefield. But give enough thanks for bringing that in. And also, you made a point about trying to form this political body devoid of the dogma, right, that govern the different houses or mansions of Rastafari. That is also very vital. And again, I did commend the Rastafari Council of Ghana for works in that direction. And I would like to reiterate that again. So give enough thanks, Chief Ayakongo. Now, in summary, I would like to just just wrap up the points that I made about first the importance of why we should
brothers, are you still there?
Yes, Chief Congo, I'm here. I'm wrapping up real quick. So,
oh my.
Well, yes. So,
no, sir.
So yes.
So there talking for a while.
All right. So to reiterate one more time, it is very important for I and I, as Rastafari,
is anyone hearing that?
To be not just visible.
Someone mute me, brother. Really?
What's going on? Okay. All right. Let me continue. I hope you can hear me. All right. So yes, it's important to be not obeyers of the policies that are churned at us, but to be active participants in the process of making these laws and policies, right? And as I stated, we are bringing up a generation who ask questions, right? We are bringing up a generation who don't go and sit down and sing Sunday school songs and go home. We are bringing up a generation who we have told are the kings and queens, the rightful owners of this earth, etc., etc., to be asking us questions. So it's very important. Also, we did look at some of the issues or some of the elements that will come together. We looked at leadership, we looked at organization and structure, we looked at mobilization of resources, we looked at communication and messaging. And the salient point that I want to reiterate as I round up is that it is very important to be visible. Being visible includes making strong, well-crafted statements on national issues. We should also seek to get some wherewithal to back our activities. And I didn't know the of the committee, farm, and all of that. Now, with that, I want to please ask all the brethren and sistren who may have wherewithal to speak to I&I, speak to the Rastafari Council Advocacy Committee, because what we're trying to do is to acquire some land over there in Ghana to set up farms. Now, what we want to do is not to just set up farms and go sell the foodstuffs on the open market. My experience is that that's not a very profitable venture, especially in areas where there's glut, right? So you could grow corn, and then by the time you're harvesting the corn, everybody else is harvesting corn. So it's not profitable anymore. What we want to do is to set up agro-processing units that will, process these things, and also have storage units in times of that, where we can store stuff and release them on the market and stuff like that. We should also seriously consider plugging into the existing government policies that we can benefit from. I did mention the women's banking policy that the incoming government has mentioned, so that we can actively engage our empresses in obtaining low interest or interest-free loans from this policy to push their businesses, and all of that. We should also look at things like the Jumarura policy and all of that. There's a whole lot. There will be time to maybe look deeper into all of that. But in summary, I would like to say that constituting a political force is vital. It's not a political party, it is a force. It doesn't have to be based on any political party's ideology, but it can accommodate every party's political idea, as long as it's not injurious and existence, right? So this is what I mean by that. Every party is based on some good elements, and if we look at these, then we know that we can have those parties as subsets of our bigger political force, rather than being a subset of the political parties, if you get what I'm saying. With that said, I'd like to give enough thanks and enough respect to everybody who made it to this lecture. Now, let me end one more time with the words of His Majesty, appropriately. His Majesty says, throughout history, it has been the inaction of those who could have acted, the indifference of those who should have known better, and the silence of the voice of justice, when it mattered most, that has made it possible for evil to triumph. Kedemawe Emperor Haile Selassie. May the words of I and my mouth and the meditations of I be acceptable. Selassie Jah Rastafari. Give enough
Rastafari. Selassie. Yes, my lords, brethren, races, we appreciate Jah beloved Ras Kwesi for the presentation, constituting a formidable force as Rastafari. I believe we've all been encouraged, especially as a Rastafari Council Ghana, to continue what we do and to those things that has been recommended as to activities that are necessary for a formidable political force to embark on. In the words of the President, Daddy Bosco, we are learning, and Rasanoche, we are also, in his words, we are learning the rules of the organization, and so we appreciate the conversation a lot. And so we appreciate your time. We say that this conversation will be uploaded on our YouTube channel. It also airs live on Reggae Culture Radio. So we encourage once to visit this YouTube channel, subscribe and like and share, so that those who couldn't participate in the reasoning can follow up and learn from what we have all been blessed with tonight. So, my lords, races, virgins, we appreciate you all, and we'll meet again next 2 weeks. I give thanks. Rastafari.
Rastafari.
Give thanks.